Great. Welcome, everybody. My name is Laura Guy. Welcome to our Lunch and Learn series. We do these every month, and we feature one of our physician specialists. Today, we're going to be featuring Dr. Alex Barkin. And we are also taping this. This is on Facebook Live, and we'll also have it up on our website so you can see the session later. Dr. Barkin, in addition to being a medical doctor, has a master's degree in business administration. He's also a fellow of the American College of Surgeons and a fellow of the American Society of Metabolic and Bariatric Surgery. He did his residency at Maimonides Medical Center at Hahnemann University and his fellowship at Princeton University Medical Center. He is board certified in surgery and is here today to tell us about metabolic surgery and weight loss seminars. So we welcome Dr. Barkin.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm going to spend about a half an hour, 45 minutes talking about weight loss surgery and the things that are important, some interesting statistics. So the basics of weight, when we talk about weight, we talk about something called the body mass index. The body mass index has to do with your height and your weight. It's your formula. You go to a formula and a number comes out. Normal BMI is anywhere from 18 to 25. Overweight is considered to be over 25 to 29. Obesity is considered to be over 30. And morbid obesity that qualifies for surgery is over 35. That's class 2 and above obesity. This is a series of slides I'll show you. This is the National Assessment Nutrition and Health Study that was started in 1985. And the criteria was a female, 5'4", which is the average height of females in the United States, whose BMI was over 30. And I wanted to see the percentage of the population in each state that fit this criteria. And what they found in 1985, when they started, there wasn't much data. Some states had 5%, some states had 10%, but overall there wasn't much data. But 10 years later, in 1995, you'll see a dramatic change, where now there is no state in the union that is not, where obesity is not prevalent, and some states have 20% of the population is now obese in 1995. In 2005, 10 years later, now we're looking where some states have up to 30% of their population is obese, particularly in the South. The current data states that in the United States, 37.5% of the population is obese. About 22 million Americans qualify for weight loss surgery. And when we look at local data in New York, and particularly Staten Island, in New York, about 24% of the population is obese. In Staten Island, particularly in the north here, between 20 and 40% of the population is considered to be obese, and that's about a 10% rate of diabetes in this part of Staten Island. So the statistics are pretty staggering. When we talk about weight loss, there are different modalities, right? There's dieting, there's behavior modification, there's medication, there's also surgery. When we talk about weight loss, we don't talk about weight loss today. So people who lose weight a couple of months into their dieting or medication, what have you, that's not what we look at. We look at weight loss over 5 years or 10 years and the sustainability of that weight loss. Because losing weight now, most people have been able to do that successfully, but the problem is the majority of people are not able to sustain that weight loss 5 years down the road. Today, the only modality that's available to sustain that weight loss 5 years down the road is surgery. Obesity is multifactorial. There are about 250 genes associated with obesity. And so it's very hard to pinpoint which gene is really the one that's causing all the issues. But genetics obviously plays a role, behavior plays a role, and the environment plays a role. All these things are factors in obesity. After smoking, it's the second preventable cause of death in the United States. Up to 400,000 deaths occur each year to obesity-related medical problems, and those are preventable deaths. These are some staggering statistics. So 37% of the population in the United States is obese. 4.5 million adolescents are morbidly obese. That means they qualify for surgery. 22 million Americans qualify for surgery. $169 billion in revenue are lost to days lost of work due to medical issues related with obesity. 1 in 3 people applying to the military is obese. And about 400,000 obesity-related deaths can be preventable in the United States. What are the common medical issues associated with obesity? Hypertension, high cholesterol or hyperlipidemia, sleep apnea. For those who don't know, sleep apnea is if you find yourself, if you're snoring at night or you find yourself falling asleep in the chair during the day or your significant other has to give you a nudge, that might be a sign of sleep apnea and patients have to be tested for it. Things like depression can be associated with obesity, and of course other medical problems such as cancer, heart disease, stroke. So there's plenty of, in women, polycystic ovary disease is considered to be obesity of the ovaries. And a lot of young women who have polycystic ovary disease are not diagnosed early on in their life because they're young. And so while you're young, you don't have a lot of medical problems. So doctors are not very aggressive in treating these patients. But these women go on to have medical issues as they get older. And many of them will qualify for surgery and actually improve after weight loss. You know, many diets that are out there. There's Atkins and Zone diet and Weight Watchers diet, all these commercial diets. The average person loses about 7 pounds a year on these diets, and they spend about $100 a pound on these diets. So they don't work very well. In fact, diets don't work at all for the most part, but sustainable weight loss. So eating less and moving more. So that's this interesting statement, right? Because people are told eat less and move more, and that's how you're going to lose weight. That is a true statement if you're able to sustain that. Well, the reality is most people who go to the gym and lose calories in the gym after working out, what do? When they go home? They eat because they are justified in eating. They just went to the gym. They just lost calories, plus they're hungry. So it really doesn't work just by going to the gym, working out. It doesn't work. Eating less doesn't work either because you're always hungry. Anybody who's been on long-term diets are always hungry, looking for food. So it's not sustainable. These things are not sustainable. So dieting is not sustainable. There has to be something else. There has to be a change in lifestyle, but change in lifestyle is also not the issue. And we'll go over some of the things that can be the issue in our society. The problem in our society is that 60% of our foods are processed foods. And 60% of those foods that are processed have tons of sugar. And sugar is masqueraded in many forms. Particularly the 61 ways that sugar can be masqueraded. From glucose to maltose to honey to sucrose. This is all sugar. All this added sugar is thought to be the cause of obesity in the United States because obesity in the United States has become very prevalent in the last 50 years. That's the time frame that food has become processed. That's a huge problem. So added sugar is the problem that adds to the obesity epidemic in our country. The number one source of sugar comes from soda, from sweet drinks. That followed by desserts and everything else. But added sugar is the problem. And the added sugar is not to become too technical, there's different kinds of sugars, the simple and complex. So this is simple sugar, fructose and glucose. Those things get absorbed easily by the liver. The body has no way to say I had enough. There's no mechanism in the body to say I had enough. In fact, the sugar stimulates the brain to get more sugar, to ask for more sugar. That's why it's a big problem. So sugar is the problem, particularly fructose, which comes from corn, and is number one added sugar to products because it's easily absorbed. It has something called the low glycemic index. It doesn't raise your sugar levels, so it's very easily absorbed by the body. That's very bad. So this is a great example. One of the things that we don't have in our diets when food gets processed and refined is fiber. Fiber is the reason why you get full. So when you eat one orange or two oranges, you get full. You can't have 5 oranges. Chances are you're not going to eat 5 oranges, but you can have a glass of orange juice. That's 5 oranges because it's been refined. It's been all the natural products have been removed. So that's why people can consume more in liquid form and when food is refined. But the body hasn't adapted yet, right? Over millions of years, our bodies have not adapted to this kind of eating because we were hunter-gatherers in the past, right? Most of our foods were natural, most of our foods were proteins. We didn't have access to all these goodies that we have now. This is a slide basically says that as the BMI goes up, the cost of healthcare goes up. Physician visits, pharmacy visits, laboratory visits, everything goes up because it gets utilized more. So bariatric surgery, why is it successful? Because it's the most effective treatment of obesity in the United States and in the world today. There's substantial weight loss. People can lose up to 50% or higher of their overall excess weight. And there's resolution of the comorbidities or the medical issues associated with obesity with surgery. There are obviously lifestyle benefits with surgery. You move better, you feel better, you feel less self-conscious. You do the things that sometimes patients who are obese cannot do. Cross their legs, bend down to pick up their keys. Those are the things that people take for granted, but a lot of obese patients have daily issues with this. And so that improves with surgery. There are different kinds of surgeries in the United States, but we'll talk about the two basic ones that we offer at RUMC, the sleeve gastrectomy and the gastric bypass. Briefly mentioned the lab ban, but that has really fallen out of favor in the last few years. It's not the statistics on it are not as successful as we hoped it to be. I thought it was going to be in the beginning, but these other two surgeries are successful and they're very prevalent today because they're covered by insurance and people have access to it. The first surgery is called the gastric bypass. The gastric bypass is over 60 years old. It was developed through different techniques to what it is today. And what it is today is it has two parts. It consists of a small stomach, the size of an egg, and it consists of a bypass part of bowel. So the surgery technically is called a RUMC, like the letter Y. One part of the Y connects to the new stomach, one part of the Y connects to the old stomach, and where the Y meets, that's where food starts to be absorbed again. So you have a section of bowel or area where food is not being absorbed, plus the small stomach adds to your inability to eat too much. And the most important way that the surgery works is the patient is not hungry. They eat because they have to, not because they want to. So you're not, the hunger goes away after the surgery. Some issues occur with these surgeries. For the most part, these surgeries are fairly safe, but there are potential problems that can occur. Something called dumping syndrome. For gastric bypass patients who eat very sweet things or very fattening foods, they can get sick. They get nauseous, a little sweaty, feel like they have a little belly cramps, maybe you have to go to the bathroom extra time. And those things happen due to physiology and then shifting of fluids. But that does get better. You have to stop eating the foods that are causing this problem. And usually patients maybe experience that once or twice, but then eventually they realize what it is that they should not be eating, and this does not occur again. This is a short video showing you basics of what it looks like inside the abdomen. Surgery is performed called laparoscopically. We make small incisions. We place devices in called trocars, which are basically hollow tubes that allow us to bring our instruments in, our cameras in. We distend or stretch the abdomen out with carbon dioxide so we can see inside. And when we're inside, we are looking at, this is normal anatomy, esophagus, stomach. And what we do is we create a small pouch using stapling devices. And then we bypass a part of this with a piece of bowel. And it's usually about 2 feet of bowel that gets bypassed, rerouted, connected to the new stomach. And now, this is where the Y meets here. Now food enters through the esophagus and into the small stomach and into the intestines. And that's how food enters. Now, the yellow stuff represents bile, juices, and acids. So the stomach that sits there still works. It's connected to the blood supply, nothing happens to it, and it works very well. So this is how food enters, and that's how people digest their food. And then the juices come and meet at that junction where the Y meets. That's where food starts to be absorbed again. So as people lose weight, all their ailments go away. Their CPAP machine used for sleep apnea goes away. Their blood pressure medication, diabetic medication, arthritis medication, psychologically they improve. But they have to obviously change, or their clothing has to change, but that could be fun for some people. In terms of diabetes, if the patient's insulin dependent diabetic, you have to look at the time frame, how long they've been on insulin. If it's over 10 years, chances of completely getting off the insulin are probably not going to happen, but definitely half the insulin is going to be needed right before they leave the hospital. Type 1 diabetics obviously have to continue insulin. So the sleeve gastrectomy is a fairly new surgery. When I say fairly new, it's about 15 years old. It was part of a 2-stage procedure, but that second part of the surgery, it's controversial. Some people do it in the United States, but only 4% of surgeries in the United States are that second type of surgery. We're not going to really mention it. But the sleeve gastrectomy has become a standalone surgery. Your stomach can hold about a liter of fluid, like a Coke bottle. And then what happens is we cut away about 70 to 80% of that stomach. We use a special tube, a calibrating tube, so the stomach is never smaller than a certain size. And the stomach, it's called a sleeve. I'm not sure why it's called a sleeve. Nothing gets put on the stomach. It's just your stomach, but smaller. It's the size of a banana. It can hold as much as a banana. It also might be, if you think about it, represented as a hockey stick, thinner on top, a little wider on the bottom. And that's basically the sleeve gastrectomy. This stomach, unlike in the bypass, is not connected to anything. It's a blind balloon, and it has to be removed. So this is truly a permanent surgery. The gastric bypass sometimes can be reversed, but most of the time it's not reversed. It's a permanent surgery. But sleeve gastrectomy is truly a permanent surgery. And this is a video showing what that looks like. Again, laparoscopic, small incisions, trocars are placed, then we place our instruments, we look inside, we distend with carbon dioxide, and we look inside the abdomen. And here we are. Here is the esophagus, here's the stomach. This is the rest of the anatomy, we don't bother with it. And this is how the normal stomach is when food enters normally, right? And it goes down through the small intestine and proceeds with digestion. What we do is we're using a stapling device again, we cut the stomach into a smaller stomach, call it a sleeve, it's banana shaped, and then this part of the stomach gets removed. And now food obviously enters through here. Now you're just dealing with a smaller stomach. We also offer surgeries called revision and conversion surgery. There are patients out there who've already had weight loss surgery. Some of them had sleeves, some of them had lap bands, and either due to failure of significant weight loss or as much weight loss as they wanted, or due to things like reflux or complications, we do offer revision or conversion surgery, or sort of do-over surgery. Well, not everybody qualifies, but they are available in our armamentarium. Sleeves to bypass, lap bands to sleeve, lap band to bypass, revision of bypass for a condition called a marginal ulcer, which I won't go into too much. Risks and complications. These surgeries are very safe. Over 200 surgeries occur each year in the United States for weight loss. The statistics all get, for the most part, covered by the American Society of Surgery that has a quality program called MSD Quit. And basically, many centers, including us, want to achieve that level where they are considered a center of excellence, and all their statistics gets filed and looked at and to look at complications. So, in one major study looking at 100,000 patients, they looked at 150 different things that can occur with these surgeries. What can possibly occur? Anything that completely is unrelated to the surgery to related. And the number one issue that can occur after surgery is nausea. People can be nauseous for a day or two, particularly after a sleeve, not as much as after a bypass, but a sleeve. And that's the number one complication. The worst complication of these surgeries is something called a leak. A breakdown in the anatomy due to probably technical reasons during surgery can cause a big problem that requires more surgery, prolonged hospital stay, and can be troublesome. For the most part, these things are treated and patients do well, but sometimes it can be very dangerous. So the leak is the worst complication, and that occurs anywhere from 0.5% of the time to 2% of the time. Obviously, if it happens to the patient, it's 100%, but this is sort of something we always think about, and we always try to make sure that it does not happen, but it can happen. Other things that can happen, patients after these surgeries have to maintain a special diet, mostly protein diet, 60 to 80 grams of protein a day. If they don't maintain their protein intake, they can have some hair thinning. Women, obviously for women that can be a little troublesome, but nobody ever loses all their hair, but it can be a little troublesome. It gets better about 4 to 6 months after surgery with proper diet. Again, so sleeve and bypass, we talk about leaks in both surgeries. Obviously other things can happen, other organ injury, bowel injury, more surgery is necessary. This is surgery after all, but we do take great care to make sure that we are as safe as possible. So if a leak occurs, usually it manifests itself as high heart rate of above 120, persistent for about 4 hours. And these leaks are very dramatic. They don't happen very simply. The patient has a lot of pain, and they get picked up fairly quickly with different kinds of testing, including imaging studies. Well, how much weight can a patient lose after these surgeries? Conservatively, when we talk about weight loss, we talk about excess weight loss. So if a patient is 100 pounds overweight, if they lose 50 of those 100 pounds, that's considered to be successful. The chances are patients lose much more. And the average in terms of numbers, a sleeve patient can lose anywhere from 60 to 80 pounds conservatively just from the surgery alone. If they want to lose 100 plus pounds, definitely will take a little more effort. Effort manifests itself as eating a proper diet. Of course, exercise helps as well. In bypass patients can lose over 100 pounds, but it has to do with age and sex. So the spectrum is really young males to older females, and that's where younger males tend to lose the most weight, older females less. But with that said, I've seen success stories on both ends of the spectrum. So weight loss is significant, and it has to do with the fact that you're not hungry. It has to do with the fact that your anatomy is small. The reason why diets don't work, and if you've seen TV, you've seen programs where they feature patients who lost a lot of weight with dieting and exercise, and they were very successful. But what you don't know is that most of these programs, a majority of these patients, if not all, have regained all their weight back within 2 years. The reason being is because as you diet, there's something in the system called the basal metabolic rate. The basal metabolic rate is the rate at which food is being digested in the body. When the body senses that there's less calories, it says, wait a minute, I have to feed the liver, I have to feed the brain, I have to feed the heart. So I'm going to slow down the rate at which I break down these calories so I can feed everybody appropriately. But what happens is when this basal metabolic rate goes down, it never really goes back up ever. So patients who eat 1,000 calories a day lose significant amount of weight. But then what happens is they have to eat 500 calories a day to maintain that weight loss, or 200 calories a day, or stop eating altogether. So that's why dieting, for the most part, is not successful. This is multifactorial because patients, the hunger really gets to them and they're really miserable. They don't want to feel that hunger. Basal metabolic rate is the issue. So dieting, for the most part, does not work. And we've known this for many years, and it's been confirmed now. Because what is popular today? What's popular today? Intermittent fasting, right? Not eating at all. Don't eat, right? That's the only thing that's popular. That's the only way that you can lose significant amount of weight. The reality is, most people can't sustain not eating for 18 hours, eating for 2 hours. It's not sustainable. These things are not sustainable. The other popular diet is keto diet, right? Why? Why is keto diet popular? It's sort of a takeoff on the Mediterranean diet. Well, it's popular because, number one, it really has minimal sugar, and that's why it's popular. That's why it's successful. Minimal sugars. So if you can cut down your sugars to zero, then you'll be successful in terms of weight loss. Chances are most people can't cut down their consumption of sugar to zero because the body craves sugar. But that's why these diets, such as keto and intermittent intermittent fasting, have become successful because really nothing else works. It's all not sustainable. Other things that happen when you lose weight, your chances of dying go down from heart disease, strokes, cancers. Those things all improve after losing weight. Your chance of dying goes down by 90% over 5 years with weight loss. Obviously, this is just a conclusion for this part of the lecture, is that it improves comorbidities, decreases mortality risk, decreases risk of developing new health conditions, and reduces healthcare utilization. As weight improves, all these things get better. There's a resolution of diabetes of 87%, obstructive sleep apnea 80%, hypertension 90%, and high cholesterol 96% resolution after weight loss. Post-operative care, basically the way the program works in our hospital is that most commercial insurances require something called a 6-month waiting period. And just to put in perspective, the average wait time in Canada is 7.5 years for surgery. So 6 months is really not that bad, right? So patients have to come in and weigh in every month. They have to not make sure they don't gain weight in that 6-month period. And they have to undergo medical work, heart, lung, endoscopy, psychology, all part of the NIH criteria for surgery. When all these things are complete, then they go on to have surgery. Surgery lasts anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, depending on their situation, and hospital stay can last anywhere from a day to 2 nights, from 1 night to 2 nights. As when they wake up after surgery, they're up and they're walking. They're not. They don't need assistance for walking. These are elective surgeries. They have no catheters or tubes placed unless it's necessary. So they're pretty much mobile, and they go to the bathroom by themselves. And we encourage them to get up and walk around as soon as they awake from anesthesia. What are some of the things that can happen after these surgeries? For the most part, patients do very well, but some issues can occur, such as reflux. So with a sleeve gastrectomy, reflux can be a problem. This reflux many times is treated with medication, but sometimes further things are needed, such as potentially more surgery, like conversion to a bypass, because the reflux is pretty bad, or other procedures. Other things that can occur, there can be narrowing of the anatomy or stricturing of the anatomy in the bypass between the stomach and the intestines. The connection can sometimes scar down, which needs to be stretched. And it's usually stretched with a balloon, through an endoscope, 1 to 2 times, and that's successful. Hair thinning can occur if you have protein malnutrition. Patients have to be on multivitamins, calcium, vitamin D, and women take biotin for their hair, which sometimes does work. Vitamin D, the issue with vitamin D, the thought is if chronic deficiency of vitamin D can lead to osteoporosis. And the reality is that probably 99% of people in this room have vitamin D deficiency. Vitamin D has a very wide range on blood testing, and we're not sure what is supposed to be normal. But if a patient has issues with vitamin D, they do take supplemental vitamin D on top of all the other vitamins that they take. Some food intolerance. Patients sometimes after bypass or sleep cannot eat heavy meats or heavy breads. They just doesn't go down. They feel discomfort, they feel pain, and they have to modify their diets. What helps is that there's not many cravings after bypass, and the hunger is definitely decreased, and this all helps in weight loss and maintaining weight loss. Follow-up care after this patient leaves the hospital, they come to the office a week after surgery, 1 to 2 weeks after surgery, followed by a month after surgery, and then every 3 months for the first year, every 6 months for the second year, and every year after that. We check their blood levels for vitamins, make sure that they're adequately taking their necessary medication, and we obviously answer any issues and questions they have. We also have, for our patients, support groups. So a seminar is where we give information to the patient initially, but support groups is where every month we hold a class discussing different topics that are pertinent to weight loss surgery patients. We have a nutritionist that also speaks and giving advice on what to eat and what not to eat. And then the patients gather in a group and they discuss different issues, and it develops a sense of community, and they become friends, and they really help each other on the journey through after surgery. So people don't feel alone and don't feel like their problems are unique to them. They realize that many others are experiencing the same things that they can experience after surgery or in preparation for surgery. Insurance, like I said, most commercial insurance require these 6-month waiting periods. Our government insurance, such as Medicare, does not, but most other insurances today do require this. Despite tons of scientific data, despite tons of experience, and despite tons of successful weight loss surgery, insurance companies are still reluctant to allow patients to undergo surgery readily. They do continuously place barriers to access. And that's really the major reason why the surgery is not more prevalent than it is, because of barriers to access from insurance companies. I'll stop here. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you for listening. Any questions? Yes.
On the slide, the first one said dumping. What is that?
So dumping is that condition that occurs in gastric bypass patients who eat very fattening and very sweet foods. The body tries to get rid of the product, and it manifests itself as nausea, sweating, some belly pain, and going to the bathroom. That's called dumping syndrome. The body's trying to dump physiologically the fluid from inside the walls of the bowels into the lumen of the bowels, and that causes release. That's called dumping syndrome.
And you said Medicare does not pay for that?
Medicare pays for it, but Medicare does not require a 6-month waiting period. Medicare pays for it as soon as the patient's ready medically for surgery.
How about a patient that has a quadruple bypass?
There is
And 2 other surgeries on the body. They said that flooded.
Yeah, as long as the patient is cleared by their cardiologist, surgery is an option. There's very few reasons why we can't do surgery on patients, very few. Obviously, you have to understand, every patient undergoes surgery is high risk, by definition. Every patient is high risk. Some people are higher risk, but every patient that lays on the table to have surgery for weight loss is a high-risk patient. And we know that, and so, but it's acceptable.
When you cut away the stomach, does the stomach, after you, I presume it's stapled, right?
Right.
Does the stomach grow?
No, it doesn't grow much. It doesn't grow much. It's just what happens is the anatomy settles down after a period of time, and the patients learn that they can eat a little more. You know, they sort of learn what they can do and cannot do. You understand? If patients are strict with their diets after surgery and follow our instructions, they're very successful. But there are some patients who liberalize their eating habits and can regain some of the weight back that they lost successfully from surgery.
When I had my quadruple bypass, one of the things the nutritionist told us is to have a glass of wine every single night,
Yeah,
which I have had every single night since my bypass.
good.
And then it said something about no alcohol.
Well, alcohol after weight loss surgery, you had a heart surgery, right?
But it said you have to,
Yeah, but this is bypass for weight loss surgery. This is not. You had a bypass for your heart.
do you stop wine altogether?
Well, we stop alcohol for a period of time, yes.
Or just a period of time?
Well, hard alcohol can be a problem because patients can get intoxicated faster and physically feel uncomfortable as the alcohol is in the new anatomy. So you have to be careful with alcohol, particularly carbonated beverages and strong alcohol.
Also carbonated beverages are not recommended.
I recommend it for the first 6 months to a year.
First 6 months. And how does one go about getting, I guess, what's it called, qualified or whatever?
Well, you have to first qualify by weight, by BMI. BMI has to be over 35 with medical problems, or being over 40 just by itself. That qualifies for patients. And then, of course, the medical work has to occur, including heart doctor, lung doctor, stomach doctor. All these things have to be done prior to surgery. And some, because if you have commercial insurance, then you have to come in for once a month for weigh-ins and follow-up. So when that whole process is complete, then we submit for clearance by insurance companies, and then we can proceed with surgery.
Are you the doctor that does all the
I am.
surgeries? Is that normal?
Well, I think there's another doctor, but we're not going to mention their name. Yes, I'm the one.
And all the doctors that you just mentioned, do you provide for those? Or
We
just
can.
as regular?
Well, we can provide if necessary, but if a patient has their own doctor, they can go back to their own doctor.
I have a
That sounds like a
doctor for
bother.
everything.
Huh?
I have a doctor for everything.
So that's great. So but I don't know why you're not going to have surgery, so you're all right.
I'm not gonna have to.
No. You don't need surgery. You need surgery? You want surgery? You can make your post
Listen, I'm having trouble walking.
Oh,
And I think if I lost about 50 pounds, I'd probably walk a lot better.
well, you have to qualify. You have to qualify based on your body mass index. If your body mass index is not where it's supposed to be for surgery, you can't have surgery. We can't do surgery.
So what's the first step?
First step is to check your body mass index. You can go either on our website. There's a calculator there. You put your height and your weight, and you look at that BMI. If that BMI is less than 35, you don't qualify for surgery.
So insurance doesn't, insurance pay, right?
Insurance pays if you qualify.
Qualify is the BMI over 40 or
Yes.
over 40?
Yes.
Doesn't matter in age?
No, age is really not really an issue. We've operated on teenagers as young as 14 to people as old as 80.
80?
Yeah.
How much, if insurance doesn't pay, how much it usually?
It's very expensive because there's a lot of factors involved, but it's usually cost prohibitive. Most people patients are not going to pay out of pocket. So they're expensive.
Doctor, what's the website?
Is it on here?
It's RUMC.org.
BMI?
/ BMI.
That's it.
On the back.
It's on the back.
Yeah, our website has a lot of literature on it, a lot of information for further reading. There's also an online seminar that I give as well, and you can calculate the BMI there as well.
Any contraindication for patient?
Very minimal
How about
contraindications.
the diabetes is?
Diabetes is the first indication for surgery.
Really? How about the heart problem?
Well, heart problems, if they're active, they have to be addressed and they have to be cleared by the heart doctor. But if they're controlled, usually it's not an issue.
But COPD.
COPD again, if the pulmonologist clears the patient, then usually that's cancer obviously is not a good idea for surgery. No, I mean, unless, well, if the cancer is treated and if a history of cancer is one thing, but active, obviously cancer is not a medication.
So, any, rate, 5 years or 5 rate 100% or?
Yes. Well, from surgery itself, yes. Yes. Any other questions? Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Hasn't signed the sign-in sheet, please do, and thank you for coming today, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, just.
Of course.
Hey.
No.
I know.
Don't pick it up. You're gonna kill the guy over there. No, I'm worried about killing myself. Oh, God.
On the chat, appreciate you.
No, I'm a sick one.
Yes.
I'll agree to that one.
Appreciate your time. This is you.
Thank you, Dr. Parker.
Take care next time.
Thank you.
Good enough.